Greetings, Guardians, my name is Byfear. Today we're concluding the story of what happened to Sloane while she was on Titan after it had been abducted by the Black Fleet at the end of the season of Arrivals. In the last episode of this series, we saw Sloane pursuing pyramid ships across Titan's surface, finding ritual sites scattered deep beneath its oceans, and seeing that the forces of the Witness were searching for something. Sloane and her ghost were also made keenly aware that there was something out there beneath the sea that was circling them on a constant basis. In the early days, Sloane had witnessed the serpent-like creature in a vision as Titan was being abducted, but following on from that, the creature that she would one day come to know as Asa would circle them from a distance and would be an ever-present and looming terror of the deep. She would also be communicating subtly with Sloane in a psionic manner, telepathically sending messages and giving instruction and giving a general note to continue her pursuit, always just out of sight but never quite out of mind. Sloane would discover more about Asa thanks to a series of time distortions that she would witness on Titan. These distortions seemed to show moments from the Golden Age, all of which made reference to a Leviathan-class creature within Titan's methane ocean. This was, of course, Asa, but the researchers in the Golden Age Pacific archaeology, such as senior marine biologist Gideon Teppin, would know it only as a psychic whale, which was trying to warn them of an approaching calamity. In other words, the first collapse. Approximately 3 months into her mission of survival, Sloane found another ritual site left behind by the Hive that had been abandoned, and after interacting with the Hive sigil, she experienced an interception by Zivor Arath herself. This event is clearly what led to Sloane's Taken Affliction, as she was dragged into a tear and the Taken Affliction would start to affect her body. Though it seems clear that she would not lose her agency from this moment, it was still a dramatic and clearly traumatic experience. Sloane would discover and would later tell us that she felt capable of breaking into the enemy's comms and getting a better understanding of their movements thanks to that taken link, implying that whilst she was still free, she was connected. Needless to say, though, this did nothing to reassure her ghost, Johan. This is where our story picks up first, in this final episode. Nearly a year into their mission, trudging along the barren ocean floor, Sloane and her ghost Johan would share their thoughts about the state of where they were. Sloane was filled with a grim resolve. Johan was filled with nothing but concern. This lore can be found in the Weir Walker leg armor from the Season of the Deep. It reads as follows. Day 287. A rising pressure signaling imminent danger. There's nothing to hide behind, Sloane laughed sardonically over comms, annoyance building in her voice. She made a point of spinning in the empty expansive ocean, exoskeleton-encased arms out wide, before turning to her ghost. They'd been walking through desolate nothingness for days, tracking the next site. We need to keep hitting them. It's been over a year of chasing pyramid waves, of the blight. You're getting worse. Johan's shell cut like fins through the methane. And there is something out there. It's been trailing us, or ahead of us. I know. It's something old. Sloane's voice was flat. I told you, I think it's been talking to me. Or more like thinking at me. Silence hung over them for a moment before being swept away by the current. Oh, is it now? Care to share more about that? The ghost asked with restrained frustration. Whatever's out there. I think it's guiding us. Or trying to see if it can trust us. If we're compatible? Oh, that's good and vague, Johan hissed. You're sure that's what it wants? Because we have a hive god chasing us. We don't have the luxury of guessing wrong. It's just a feeling. Not really my thing. But my gut tells me it's well-intentioned. Zivor Arath, on the other hand. Johan dropped onto the seafloor sand. That's what we've been following? Your gut? You think you can charge into fight after fight on a feeling and keep walking away? Isn't that the idea? I'm effectively immortal. Sloane stopped, turned, and shook her head. The suit's wearing. Rations are... Look, we need to finish the mission while I'm still in fighting condition. Titan's gone, Sloane. Xiaohan rose and drifted past her. What happens if you die somewhere too dark to drag you back? Have you considered that? This coming from the gung-ho ghost taking on the whole Hive army with a set of shaving razors. Sloane chuckled to herself. Seriously, are you expecting to live through whatever this is? No, Xiaohan said meekly. I hoped you would. The firm lines of Sloane's expression crumbled for an instant. This was unlike them. She shut her visor, cleared her throat, and turned to continue marching. No more fighting for you. That's an order. But that's... I was saying that to you! The ghost zipped forward. Hey, don't walk away from me! Sloane stopped. The heavy metal around her boots sank into the silty sea floor. I'm not. There's nowhere to walk away to. That's my point. Sloane jabbed a finger at her ghost. I'm not starving to death through an eternity just to turn out like the psycho that runs Gambit, if I even make it that far. But you don't have to worry about that. Let me be useful while I can, then move on when it's over. Xiaohan whirred in thought for a moment. I don't want to make it without you. We don't get to choose that. Sloane straightened her stance. If you can't take it when it hits you, you go out and hit it before it gets started. Sloane raised her visor and met Xiaohan's stare. That's the best plan I have while I'm still walking. You have a better one? No. Then let's get to work. The desperation of their situation was readily apparent. An individual guardian is technically immortal, but not invincible. Even against the dwindling stock of rations, it's conceivable that Sloane would have been able to continue fighting for a significant period of time, but a lack of food and supplies, a lack of medical attention, a deteriorating suit of power armor, the risk of falling to Xivu Arath's forces, even merely the crushing pressure of the oceans above. All of it represents a stress on Sloane and her ghost that would eventually drive them to a state of failure, one way or another. The only question would be what would get to them first. And none of the answers are good. It's here that Sloane's grim resolve wins out above all else. In the face of a grisly, terrifying death with consequences that would almost certainly have been horrifying for any person, let alone any guardian, to endure, given their ability to continuously resurrect and suffer over and over and over again, her instinct would still be to place one foot in front of the other and to keep going, regardless of all the danger. Granted, the gut feeling given to her by Asa certainly would have helped, but it's not to say that the deputy commander would have shown any less resolve in the face of terrible odds. After all, she chose to stay on the moon that was doomed to be captured by the pyramids. That says enough about how steely her nerve truly is. Strong resolve or not though, Sloane would eventually be led to a place of terrible calamity. The Guardian will not be defeated perhaps once in every 1,000 battles, but when they're alone, cut off and weakened by a taken affliction, that one loss can have brutal consequences and can be their end. It's here, in this moment that certainly looks like it was going to be Sloane's end, that our story met a moment of true calamity. As Sloane was captured, well over a year into her sortie on Titan, a mysterious figure would rise from the shadowy seas and be her deliverance. The lore here can be found in the Weirwalker class items. It reads as follows. Day 402. You wear my banner. Xivu Arath, Hive God of War. Sloane knelt, unable to stand. All the weight of Titan's oceans around her was nothing compared to the pressure of Xivu Arath's will pinning her down. A horde of gnashing hive bore lipless smiles around a single taken knight. He stood tall before her, brandishing a gleaming blade that anchored an oppressive terrace of sharpened obsidian. The terrace loomed over their heads, a voice cut through the gnashing, eager-toned like running blood. "Soldier of the sky, your strength wanes, your strategy too obvious. You took without claim, and now I claim you. The sky, drawn to fall once more, pinned by night's blade. Summon your meager light, your sky tether. You are defeated." Xivu's voice rose from her projection, booming from the black terrace with laughter like screaming fear. "Your bearer needs you, ghost. Be brave." Sloane felt needles of intent thread between the gaps in her armor, hook into her muscles, and slowly peel away the power suit's deep-set rivets from inset bone, a violent unraveling to a slow and painful end. Xiaohan watched the torture from rocky concealment, razors extended, waiting for an opportunity to strike. Minutes felt like hours, but Sloane clung to life in a cloud of crimson-tinged mist. Delirium and agony fogged Sloane's mind, but an offer pierced through the cacophony of war. She heard it in her mind as if she had thought it herself. A broken promise. Bond. Live. She considered the offer. Xiaohan rushed forward, unwilling to watch any longer, and whirled through a swarm of thrall with her blades. If she could reach Sloane, if she could just cut her free. Xivu Arath shrieked with whetted laughter. "This morsel is mine to consume!" Lances of pure onyx thrust through the sea to impale the little light. The terrace bulged and surged forward, swelling as if to burst. For a moment, Xiaohan believed Xivu Arath would burst through the black terrace herself, wielding a blade in corporeal hand. War's presence emanated with such strength. Instead, a gargantuan serpent crashed through the projection and snatched the knight into its cavernous jaws as it surged by, shattering the terrace's connection to the night. Eruptions of soulfire swallowed the terrace and branched through its methane as the projection imploded on itself. The serpent dove, its enormous form overtaking and dwarfing the crumbling terrace projection. It twisted above them, unfurling a portion of its tail to sweep aside scores of hive with ease, and sending plumes of sediment into a thick, obfuscating fog. Sloane collapsed, and Xiaohan rushed to her side, cutting through an acolyte before it could raise its shredder. "We need to go! Get up!" Xiaohan exclaimed, and began stitching Sloane's gushing wounds and mending bones where she could. All around them, the hive fired wildly into the sea. The soulfire pops of their deaths spurred tiny, muted explosions as it reacted with liquid methane. Before Xiaohan could get Sloane to her feet, the serpent slammed down in front of them, belly first, shielding them from retaliatory hive salvos. Xiaohan darted in front of Sloane, razors ready against this giant beast. But the serpent simply looked at the Titan, its massive eye spanning more than 3 of her, shoulder to shoulder. Once more, Sloane heard the promise in her mind. Bond. Live. And so, they struck an accord. As Arsa made her move, she had saved Sloane, and it's here that our story comes full circle. The Leviathan of Titan would come to Sloane's aid in her hour of greatest need. It's now clear that Sloane, Xiaohan, and Arsa were able to escape these hive, and it's at this moment that it returns us to our initial lore entry that we got, Xiaohan's scuba shell. I did an earlier video on this, but I think it's appropriate to once again read what we know here and to finish off the story as it should be. So, I'll read it one more time for you. This lore can be found in the Shirhan Scuba Shell. It reads as follows. Asa settled from a long journey within an undersea cavern, pocketed by air. Shirhan surveyed the mix of ancient rig foundations and natural stone. It seemed quiet enough, and Sloane needed rest. No hive barnacles grew there. Asa had swam far from the largest concentrations of hive and taken and hid away in a cove tucked beneath Golden Age wreckage. Asa filled the yawning space. She slipped through gaps and wrapped herself around plunging stalactites, her serpent worm segmentations gripping the stone, her face half submerged in slick methane liquid. Shirhan floated down from Asa's back and turned to see Sloane slide and crumple to the cave floor as trails of steam seeped from the cracks in the ground beneath her. Sloane closed her eyes. It's cold here. But the steam, it's warm, she said weakly. The worm coiled a section of her body around Sloane, trapping in the heat around her. Shirhan watched every exchange between the two and drifted out of Sloane's earshot to the worm's gargantuan face. Asa's attention snapped to the blades now protruding from the ghost's shell. The ghost got good and close. I don't know why you helped us. You seem nice. I hope you stay that way. If you're using her, if you turn coat, Shirhan sliced the air. I'll gut you. Asa's massive eye dialed in on Shirhan's iris. The two stared unblinkingly until the worm's eyelid gently closed. She emitted a tone of contrite harmonic equilibrium. I am not your enemy. The ghost scanned the worm's face, and upon seeing its benign softness, retired to the coiled shelter Asa had woven them. Sloane sat in meditation within, radiating a sense of peace that Shirhan hadn't felt from her in months. The ghost let herself pretend for a moment that even she felt almost safe. It was morning before Sloane woke. Asa met Sloane's eyes through her visor, the tilt of her enormous head signaling a sort of greeting or eagerness. Sloane removed her helmet. Need something? Ayat. Asa. Ayat. Sloane stumbled backwards into the cavern wall. Shirhan perked up into the air. Boss? Sloane inhaled sharply and dropped to a knee as her ghost swooped in front of her and turned to the creature. Before she could speak, Sloane's hand was on her shell, patting her. It's fine. It's Asa. What's an Asa? Shirhan questioned. Some kind of proto-worm? Like hive? Shirhan deployed her blades. No. The hive were something before they were hive, right? The worm gods were too. Asa is her name, I think. The ghost turned to Sloane, then to Asa. What does she want? To not be alone, Sloane responded. To be known? Shirhan retreated closer to Sloane and sheathed her blades. Right then. We like big, powerful allies. Let's hear what they have to say. A joyful shiver trundled from Asa's head down through her coiled form, rippling the methane pooled around her, sending tremors through the stone, causing crumbled dust to rain from overhead. Asa turned and focused on the pair, Her massive eye spanned well beyond Sloane's entire body. The worm's sympathetic iris flexed and shimmered in hypnotic fluctuations, drawing Sloane into a disassociative state. Ayat, Ayat, Asa, Ayat, Ayat. Sloane tumbled through timeless alien remembrances. She was shown them, spoke of them, as if they are her own, origins and sorrows she now shared. Witness offers powerful curse, a lust masquerading as love. Sloane exhaled hard, but Asa maintained her gaze, and Sloane was swept back into the current. A blade with ambition. I don't understand. Flashes of fratricidal frenzy ensue, a slither mass carnage. Those once ever bonded now drive fang and lash of tail, proclaim deep magics once thought too cruel to utter, all in pursuit of a sacred, gifted logic. Vortexes that drink empty fathoms of encrimsoned fundament sea churn above the fray. Asa cannot escape the writhe without unraveling from her captors with violence. She stains her fangs with the flesh of siblings turned rivals. Blood betrays blood to prove strength. Survival is pain. Asa flees, familial aftertaste fresh in her mouth. She would never know love again. This gift sours theirs, makes it vicious and hungry. Rejected logic, haunted as traitor, lost like you. Asa dives into an ascendant dream. Cosmic language bathes her as she ventures. Radio songs and magnetic roars that bellow across space. She slips between worlds. Across great distances, breaches back into space, glide along the curvature of galaxies, chasing a distant point of light, a solar opposite to that which takes love. Sloane gasped for air. She came here for a chance to live. Asa crashes through Titan's thick skin and into its methane sea. The expansion of humanity across Sol unfolds as she mourns. Within a golden age, a bond is found. The collapse found them. A bond is lost. She wages a battle of grief, fights against nightmares of despair. The disciple of fear struck Asa. Shahan peeked at the title. Lost, retreating, love wanes. The ebb and flow of hope. Bonded, we live. And thus a new bargain was struck. Sloane and Asa would be bonded together from this moment onward, and Asa knew that she had found someone with the potential to deliver her message to those that might defeat the Witness. Sloane has volunteered to stay behind and guard Titan, and more importantly, guard Asa for the future. This is a show of the degree of trust which Sloane has gained with Asa, and perhaps it is nothing more than simply a debt to be paid back. After all, Asa saved her life and gave us potential deliverance by helping to explain the importance of not only the Witness's origin, but also how we might pursue it through the portal. If anything else is to be learned from this, it's simply that the great sacrifice that Sloane made and the terrible consequences of Asa's life have all at very least led us to a moment of hope. Their pain, much as it was terrible to endure, might have been worth it if we are able to travel through that portal and to save all known life within the universe. But of course, that is not clearly going to be the only part of this story, and so we need to wait and see how it all unfolds. For the moment though, that is how our video ends, and I hope now you better understand the story of how Arsa and Sloane got to know each other. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and leave a like, and if you want more content, go ahead and hit subscribe, and the bell next to subscribe to turn on those email notifications. Of course, you can also go ahead and leave your own thoughts down below in the comments section. But as per usual, know that your viewership, as always, is quite enough for me, and that in the meantime, my name is Byf. Rhodacia ad Astra. I'll see you, Starside.